to start by Cairo, Dr. Tariq Fahmy, the professor of political science. How we can understand what is happening in the Pentagon right now? Is it a leadership problem or a struggle in power? Turning mics, of course, it's a struggle in power extended, started from the nominations in the Secretary of Defense and the struggle with the old groups running the work in the Secretary of State. And one of the leaks, because there were some problems and mistakes in how they use the signal, but the problem is not is the signal, but because this leaks happened even before the Hegseth take off to go for his post. But the problem is because this divisions in the Secretary of Defense. The group that have these problems, or some media groups, the problems, they also have this problem with security. The wife of the minister is actually a journalist, and as you know, she was currently working in one of the prestigious media platforms. So there was no rules. You're speaking about businessmen and real estates who came into the government under different titles. There's a lot of resignations. Maybe some threats are against the Secretary of Defense himself, even the support and protection giving for him. Turning mics, yes, until this moment. But the strengths and institutions in the US before ending the first 100 days want to say that the deep state is still present. After the 100 days of President Trump, consecutive resignation and dismantle, a lot of chaos, lack of security issues, which will be a problem for a Secretary of Defense who is not involved in and not aware of a lot of things. He has no security background. Turning mics. So do you think the support from President Trump will continue for another political goal for Trump? Turning mics. It's very early to know if President Trump's stance will still the same supporting the Secretary of Defense. It's not about the parliament, if the parliament supports Trump or not. It's completely different. We are speaking about strategic and security affairs extend the leak of information in addition to the resignation and dismantle. There are a lot of dismantle. We have seen the chief of staff and a lot of generals in the air forces. This is not something ordinary or normal. This chaos will have a lot of implication in the US. It's not only in the Secretary of Defense, but also in this rank positions that is completely related to the security. Until this moment, we don't know what is the stance and position of other systems. The advisor of national security also has a rule, but he is not officially accused. Some will somehow have suspension, and media coverage also will not be completely allowed. In all circumstances, I believe that the first 100 days of President Trump governing this crisis somehow reveal what is happening when Trump nominate only businessmen, not as general and security. We're also not going to speak about the digitalization work groups, who were also dismantled, and some accepted their resignation, which refer that we need to reorganize the internal situation in the government. Turning mics. I will speak about how the media is playing this vital role too. But I've moved to the question for Mr. Eric Brown, the strategic analyst. Mr. Eric, how we can interpret the accusation by the Secretary of Defense for his associates that they are putting a coup against him? How we can understand this accusation by the Secretary of Defense against his assistants?
Well, first, I think it's important to recognize the fact that there is no material or demonstrable evidence whatsoever that any additional leaks or errors in the use of technology to share information have taken place. This is simply a rumor that was created by the media. If you look at every single piece of coverage of it, it will say sources say, or anonymous tip, or former Pentagon employee. This is just more of the same media attacks against the Trump administration and against Secretary of Defense Hegseth, who I'd like to correct the record. Secretary of Defense Hegseth was a warrior, a combatant, a decorated soldier, and he does have substantial and serious security credentials.
So, sir, do you think that there are some goals, Mr. Eric, for these rumors and this coverage and accusation by the media platform? They have another goals by these accusations. They are not trails. If this was right, what are the media goals by giving these accusations and rumors, according to what you said?
Sure, absolutely. I think first and foremost, we should be honest with an understanding that the media is a business, especially in the United States. So the ability to create a drama or create a crisis or a perception of a crisis sells copy. It gets attention. That's the first piece. But the second is that there's been a concerted effort on the part of elements within the government, remnants of the previous regime that was in office and others, to attack Donald Trump and his appointees. I think that the goal is to try to weaken the credibility, and I don't think that they will be successful.
Dr. Ash, thank you, sir. Dr. Ash, do you think these leaks is a part of internal war, if that was correct? Learning mics, of course, it's an internal war between Republicans and Democrats. New York Times is now that is affiliated and somehow related to Democrats. The renewing movement and reconstruction movement in the Pentagon. I'm sorry, I cannot hear the other guest. I'll save this problem. But the repetition of such leaks on signal application, of course, the Secretary of Defense mentioned that this happened before. ممكن أعلي صوت دكتور أشرف؟ And he had opened an investigation in the Pentagon in order to know the source related to this conversation, which President Trump saw it, and also this Secretary of Defense saw that it is a kind of resistance by those who were dismantled. They're trying to impact the image of the Secretary of Defense, the Republican Party, or the hawks in the Republican Party, or the Trumpian in the Republican Party, view this as not serious thing. Because speaking about the accountability of the Secretary of Defense, leaks is something very serious. Turning mics, and to what extent it could impact the American image as a superpower, a major power in light of a lot of growing events around the world. It also might open the gate that might be exploited by other foreign actors, maybe China, Russia, in light of all these leaks related to Yemen, or somehow this earthquake in the Pentagon. Turning mics. The defense ministry is still strong. The Pentagon is very strong. The idea is that such a situation might shake the Secretary of Defense is something very difficult, but it's just a kind of political resistance by some groups affiliated to the Democratic Party in order to choose this as a serious event. President Trump choose those people and he's fully convinced about them and he will protect them, and he also have a majority of Republicans in the Senate and the Parliament, a crucial majority that could support him in any vote regarding the Secretary of Defense or others. So we can say that what happened will lose its reputation along the time, because Trump still support his nominees. Because whatever are the mistakes, turning mics, do you think these mistakes happen because the ignorance of protocol or the deliberate recalcitrance? Some says, I would like to take this point to Dr. Bari. Dr. Bari, how are you? Do you think this happened because it is due to the Hegseth ignorance of security protocols or deliberate recalcitrance?
Well, first of all, I agree with everything Eric said, your other guest. This is an old story that has been resurrected by the media itself. Quite frankly, the Secretary of Defense has dismissed 3 of his advisors. There seems to be some anger over that, which now the media has got a hold of. The Secretary of Defense also ordered an investigation into what exactly happened, as he should. I believe there's another investigation as well from the Inspector General, and I would expect Hegseth to welcome that investigation. But to me, this is just political fanfare. This is nothing more than political drama meant to undermine the Trump administration. But as we look at the Secretary of Defense Hegseth right now, he compares to no other Secretary of Defense in the entire history of the United States. This is a man that has served in combat. He has done great things while in the military. Right now, when he meets troops, he goes and exercises with them, even the lowest rank officers and enlisted personnel. This is a man that motivates his people to the highest rank and the lowest rank, and somebody that I would be proud to serve next to.
But Mr. Barry, do you think that some enemies like China and Russia could exploit what happened, even as some analysts see it just a misstep and the others see this as something catastrophic, because this will have a lot of implication different levels? How do you see that, Mr. Barry?
I don't see 3 people being dismissed from their post as catastrophic whatsoever or chaotic whatsoever. There are thousands of people that work at the Pentagon, and the director, the defense secretary will draw on other professionals to assist him. As far as China and Russia goes, they will always seek to exploit us in any way, shape, or form that they possibly can to try to get an advantage over the United States. This is what China and Russia does, and this is part of the asymmetrical warfare that they conduct against the United States.
Turning Max, Dr. Tariq, do you see that what's happening right now, there are a lot of analysis, but how do you see this is reflected on the credibility of Pentagon from your opinion? We are not protecting the career of the current Secretary of Defense. He committed a mistake. As he mentioned, the 3 dismantles is just the beginning. We don't know what will happen after that. We know he had a previous military background, but he also worked in different fields, and it is a mistake. Even the minister of a very small state cannot commit such a mistake. It's a serious mistake by the Secretary of Defense that cannot be forgiven, especially that other members of his family was discussing these high sensitive issues. We are not supporting this narrative that the American media are targeting the Secretary of Defense. You are facing a serious and real problem. This problem related to the chaotic situation in the defense. I repeat, the chaotic situation in the Pentagon. And the security issues will have an impact. We are not protecting the Republicans. Turning mics, what is the impact of that, Doctor? Turning mics, it's something related to the image of the U.S. in the world. We are speaking about the Pentagon. And before that, we have seen a lot of dismantles. And your guesses know these dismantles. That was dismantled, resignations happened in the last period in a lot of senior ranking. Turning mics, please, Doctor, explain me what are the implications. You have mentioned this more than one time. What are the implications? Because it's the same question I have asked Dr. Ashraf. Is there an implication on the Pentagon image, on the power of balance? You think this might be exploited by Russia or China? A lot of analysis. Some see that something very small will never have an impact, and the other see it might be catastrophic. Turning mics, with my full respect, if the situation in the Pentagon with such instability, I'm not speaking about the media leaks. What about the resignations? What was the resignation that happened recently? Senior members and officials in the Pentagon. Maybe that has nothing to do with the leaks, because this is the rule of the investigations teams that will continue the investigation regardless it was a deliberate mistake or something happened spontaneously. I believe this will impact the reputation of the U.S. And this is not only about the attentions between media platforms that support and attack President Trump. There is also a lot of there is the civil state and the institutions in U.S. that start to take some a big role because of this mistakes committed by President Trump. Because again, he nominated those with business background in these positions. In addition to the resignation, because holding the variety initiatives and innovation initiatives and all of that. The instability situation in USA has nothing to do with the media. It's all about the power struggle amid the federal American system. It's more than being a Republican or a Democrat. It's something related to other issues that the American president himself actually came from outside the American institutions. It's American institutions that work to correct the order in U.S. This is a confirmation that the U.S. somehow is a state of institutions, not a decision by one person. You are speaking about a very important entity. Until this moment, we don't have an American strategy for President Trump. The recent one was 2022. We didn't see any strategy for the Secretary of Defense. The American strategy during Trump era is still unknown. The American strategy should express the strength of power. The recent strategy was only in 2022. Until this moment, the U.S. didn't provide any strategy. Yes, there is a lot of divisions and tensions in the Secretary of Defense that will have an impact on the U.S. image. It's not only about the Secretary of Defense. You know what is happening right now in the Treasury Secretary? There is other divisions, in addition to Secretary of State. A lot of that related to the recent mistakes and decisions by President Trump related to grants, U.S. aid, supporting the humanitarian agencies. So you are facing a very unordinary state. Turning mics to Dr. Tariq, you have raised a lot of important points. One of these points is what is happening right now has a lot of implications. Mr. Eric, the question for you, Mr. Eric Brown. You mentioned that what is happening is because of the media. Also, my guest from Cairo has raised an important question. What is the significance of the 3 consecutive dismantles for a high-rank officials in the Pentagon this timing? What do you think about the dismantle, Mr. Eric?
Well, first, it's very typical for there to be turnover in the administration of the Defense Department. Second, these are not particularly high-ranking officials. I do not want to give your viewers the impression that in some way these are generals or members of the officer corps. These were advisors to the Secretary of Defense. And I think that it's worthwhile to correct the record on the issue of what the strategy is for the Pentagon. It's 28,000 employees and the 800,000.
What about the John Elliott? Do you think that Mr. John Elliott is not a high-rank official, the spokesperson of the Secretary of Defense? Dr. I will just give a chance for Mr. Eric to answer this question about the designation of Mr. John Elliott, and then I will go back for you.
Yeah. I think that there are a number of people in the Pentagon that are holdovers from previous administrations and that are part of the permanent Washington establishment that are not serving the country's interests and are not in line with strengthening America and its military readiness and effectiveness.
I would like to hear your opinion about that point, Dr. Ashraf. Go ahead. The different points of view between Republicans and Democrats to deal with this issue and the strategy is completely different. But what I can see is that the president's role in that regard is very important. The parliament also have a very important role. The president, Senate, and the parliament, they have a majority, even it was a slight majority, that given the Trump all the tools and all the previous mistakes, if we agree these are mistakes, even Republicans see that there are minor mistakes, we can say that the Pentagon is a very important institution. I agree with the guest from the US that those groups who were dismantled, they are not a high-ranking officials, as he mentioned. I agree with this point with the American guest. But may some view that what is circulated about Signal, it's a security application, something that the security institutions consider it as safe. But sharing information about the timing of striking specific locations and sharing this information is still a mistake. The Secretary of Defense mentioned, yet we should agree that we already have did that before. I really cannot hear the other guests in Egypt. I'll try to fix a problem. They have spoke about the deep state a lot of times, Republicans, the Secretary of Defense, and even the interviewer in Fox Defense has mentioned the issue of the deep state. So, if it was Biden, the Democrat will attack him. But I believe أنا صوت أستاذ أشرف أنا فعلا مش سامعاه خالص. في زنة. يعني مشكلة من عنده؟ طب لو نعرف نعمل حاجة باشمهندس بعد إذن. حاضر. So opening this investigation, so if there were some mistakes, the Secretary of Defense repeat these mistakes, I believe this will be a serious problem. The former National Security Advisor mentioned that right now we are at a different time. Maybe we will find this another Secretary of Defense. Even he given another nomination Before discussing this point, turning Max, Mr. Biden, the question for you. Mr. Biden, is it expected that this Secretary of Defense will be replaced, or he will get the support from President Trump, as Trump sees that this dismantles or resignation is a positive thing, despite the chaotic situation happened as some view among the Pentagon? So do you think that he will be replaced?
I think based on what Donald Trump said yesterday, he's very happy with Mr. Hegseth. He said, ask the Houthis what they think. Hegseth is leading the charge against terrorism in the Middle East with the recent successful actions against the Houthis. Trump is not one that is going to keep somebody around if he's not happy with somebody. So right now, Hegseth is also responsible for increasing the numbers in the military. There's increased recruiting. Trump seems to be very happy. And again, I agree with your other guest, Eric. The three people that were dismissed are basically advisors, and they're at-will employees. And that means that they could be dismissed for anything without reason.
We will continue these discussions about the Pentagon. What is happening in the Pentagon, and how risky are these leaks? In our program, we are called for a shorter break.